What was expected?
Okay, wait, you have to restart this. I'm sorry. Okay, go.
What was expected of the Japanese that couldn't read English?
What was expected of the,
Of the Japanese people that couldn't learn English.
or couldn't learn English?
Or read?
Because, you know how they had the posters around the expo center? How would they get the message that they had to...
It was fairly common knowledge that we were going to go into incarceration. Matter of fact, I have a couple of friends that in February of '42, they had Chinese friends that told them that they were going to have to go into internment or incarceration. But no, it's fairly common knowledge in the community that we had to leave town.
Alright. What do you think most people use the $20,000 compensation for?
Well, personally, I use part of it to donate it to the Oregon Nikkei Endowment, which was responsible for constructing the Japanese American Historical Plaza, which I mentioned was a $500,000 project.
Yeah, and that was to build the memorial.
Excuse me?
That was to build the memorial.
Yeah, build the memorial. And otherwise, just went into the personal general fund, and I can't remember how much I donated to the Nikkei Endowment.
How was the behavior of the staff in the internment camps?
The staff?
Yeah. How did the people treat
Well,
you?
it was, contact with the internment camp staff was pretty remote, because the administration building was separate from the buildings that we lived in, the barracks that we lived in. The only direct contact, well, each living block, I showed you the map of the camp, and organized into several blocks, and each block had a block manager that communicated with the administration, and any complaints that the internees had to go through the block manager up to the administration. But for the most part, I personally don't recall any need, to have the administration know of anything in particular. It was a life of inconvenience for sure, and there are a lot of conditions under which one could really complain, but for the most part, it's part of our cultural history. We don't complain too much. Keep it quiet.
Just a little extent to that question, like was there guards or something like to keep you guys inside the camp?
Oh yeah. The whole camp, not the whole camp, but most of Minidoka camp was surrounded by barbed wire fence, and they had guard towers here and there. And then for the most part, it was fairly well understood that you don't want to be too close to the fence. Keep your distance, otherwise the guards might impose some force on you. In Minidoka, there wasn't any unfortunate experience like that. I think there were a couple other internment camps down south that the guards had to take action against the residents or the internee, particularly at Tule Lake, California. But for the most part,
Did people die in the internment camp?
yeah, they're natural causes for the most part, and there was even a cemetery at Minidoka. I don't know what the population was, but I know there was a cemetery. But, my middle brother Tom, he got sick in Minidoka and, went to the hospital, but there was not too much the medical staff could do for him. He had a form of meningitis, and so he died at the age of 18. Died in 1943. So, in as much as our parents were Buddhists, what we did was we took Tom, and we had to go to up there in Utah, have him cremated, and then had his ashes put in the urn, and we kept him with us in the urn until we returned to Portland.
And so it wasn't common that there was a direct confrontation with any guards or anything, no violence?
Not that I'm aware of at Minidoka anyway. There were, as I said, there were confrontations at other camps.
In your opinion, what does it mean to be a freedom fighter for social justice?
That's a deep question, you know. Well, hopefully it's to create more profound understanding of what it means to be a good citizen and to participate as much as one possibly can in assuring that the system is fair and equitable by participating in such and such sessions such as this, and even writing letters to the editor of the local paper. I've done that before. Then I've testified 2 or 3 times before the city council, representing the Japanese American Citizens League in pointing out the injustices that could occur under the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Those testimonies were limited to 3 minutes. So sometimes it's very, very difficult to limit comments. I had occasion to talk to the Oregon State Senate on February 19th. I can't remember the year, 2010, I think it was, to explain to them what a day of remembrance meant to the people of Japanese ancestry. And that was I thought, quite an honor to be able to be invited to speak to the Oregon State Senate. And I was limited to 5 minutes in this case. But it was okay, went just fine. And got a standing ovation from the senators.
What do you feel still needs to be done in society? I would say to improve, since you worked with, personally you worked with segregation and improving and minusculing it. Yeah, what do you feel still needs to be done to improve?
Well, what we need to do as citizens is to point out injustices as we see them, or point out violations. Not necessarily of the law, sometimes it's violations of common sense and courtesy. And find ways and means to do that. And I just reviewed, you know, the methods that you can use, which is talking to the press and talking to the powers that be in the political system, in our case, the city council, and being part of organizations that look out for the civil rights of our citizens.
So in summary, would you say just make people who have power to just make them aware of it, make them know what's going on?
Make the system, not necessarily powerful people, but people within the system, let them know where the injustices might be, or where the failings might be. And there are times when maybe even the city council wouldn't know what's going on. Not that they're supposed to know all the time, but
What keeps you occupied, or what are you working on nowadays?
well, it's an ongoing project with Oregon Nikkei Endowment that we have rotating exhibits that we have to put together a committee to work on the exhibit, and depending on the theme, we've got an exhibit that's going to be previewed today at the Oregon Nikkei Legacy Center, and it's the phase of the incarceration experience that really hasn't been discussed very much. And that's we've discussed a lot about going into the internment phase, but there has not been too much public discussion about coming home. And so this is a different approach. And it's very interesting because there were 5 or 6 of us that wrote narratives on what our experience was in coming back after the incarceration. And all the experiences, as I understand it, were very, very different. One of the fears that you had when you first came back was how is the citizenry going to treat our coming back to the West Coast? Because there are politicians and other people that did not want the Japanese to come back to the West Coast.
Are you gonna ask? Yeah.
What did you think about the recent election between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama?
About the
recent election?
recent election?
Yeah.
What I think about it? We won. No, President Obama was my choice. And I voted for him the first time around. And I wasn't too impressed with Mr. Romney's characterization of himself. And I don't really think he was for the people as a whole, as the President Obama is. So I thought the results of the election were very, very positive for the country.
And we have about one more question. It is, do you think, who helped which president would, I mean, obviously Obama just won, but which of those candidates, Mitt Romney or Barack Obama, do you think would help more people who are in poverty? Which one do you think would help the lower
Between the two?
class? Yeah.
Oh, President Obama, yeah. He's got a stronger commitment to the people. And I don't think Mr. Romney's commitment goes that as deep as the President Obama's. And Mr. Romney's background, to me anyway, doesn't show a lot of concern or sympathy for the underdog. And President Obama's been there.
It's related to this question. So some people say like Mitt Romney's like he's prejudiced